Okay, let's jump right in. I want you to imagine something totally impossible for a second. You don't just have a lot of money, you somehow, miraculously, have infinite dollars. Literally endless cash. You could buy every planet in the galaxy and your bank account wouldn't even blink. Today, in this explainer, we're diving into a thought experiment that absolutely shatters the fundamental rules of wealth, the universe, and basic math. We are exploring the mind-bending reality of the infinite money paradox.
Section 1. At infinite fortune. Let's set the stage.
To really understand this paradox, we have to grasp the incomprehensible scale of what we're talking about here. We're not talking about $1 trillion, or a Google dollars, or even a number with 1,000,000 zeros stacked at the very end. Sure, those are massive, unimaginably giant numbers. But here's the thing with giant numbers. They eventually stop. There's a final dollar bill at the bottom of that pile. We're dealing with actual infinity, an endless, unbounded vault. You could pull money out of it for the rest of eternity, and the pile literally wouldn't shrink by a single millimeter.
So, picture this. Here's where our little thought experiment begins. Imagine I walk up to you on the street and ask a totally ridiculous question. I say, "Hey, can you give me infinite dollars?" Now, you're an incredibly generous person, and, well, you have an endless supply that you literally can't ever run out of, so you look at me and say, "Sure, why not?" And just like that, you hand over infinite dollars to me. You transfer an endless stream of wealth directly into my pockets.
Which brings us to Section 2, the subtraction problem.
Let's pump the brakes for a second, because here is where the universe's calculator just completely glitches out. I want you to genuinely sit with this question for a second. You had infinite dollars. You just gave me infinite dollars. So, how much money do you actually have left in your pocket?
At first glance, basic arithmetic tells your brain that infinity minus infinity equals 0, right? I mean, that's just how subtraction works. If you have 10 apples and you give away 10 apples, boom, you have 0 apples. You had infinite wealth, you gave it all to me, so naturally, you must be broke now, $0. But infinity doesn't work like an ordinary number. You can't just subtract it from itself and get a neat, tidy 0. When you try to force infinity into a standard subtraction problem, the normal everyday rules of math completely fall apart.
In fact, mathematicians actually have a highly specific word for this exact glitch: indeterminate. By definition, an expression like infinity minus infinity isn't automatically 0, and it cannot be firmly defined. It's basically the ultimate plot twist in basic arithmetic. Our usual logic just totally failed us. It's like trying to divide by 0. The system just throws its hands up in the air. We simply cannot determine the answer using standard subtraction.
So, because you can't just neatly zero it out, maybe you actually still have infinite dollars. But hold on, think about the new math we've just created here. If you still have infinite dollars after handing me my totally endless share, then we both have infinite dollars. You equal infinity and I equal infinity. We are both infinitely rich from the exact same original pile of cash. But wait a minute, you gave me all those dollars. You handed over an endless supply. So where exactly did the second infinity of money come from? Did you somehow magically create more money out of thin air just by giving it away? Or was the original infinity just so remarkably massive, so completely beyond human comprehension, that taking a whole other infinity out of it didn't even make a microscopic dent? I mean, our brains are screaming that money can't just duplicate itself like this.
Let's move to Section 3, the even and odd split.
To really wrap our heads around how bizarre this situation is, let's take this abstract mathematical glitch out of pure theory and make it incredibly physical. Picture this. You sit down with a black Sharpie and you physically number every single dollar bill in your endless fortune. You write a big, bold number 1 on the first bill. The next one gets a 2, then a 3, a 4, a 5, stretching out forever. You now have an infinitely tall stack of cash, and every single bill has its own unique sequential number right on the front.
Now, let's try a different kind of transaction. This time, we're going to systematically split the pile. First, you go through your endless stack and you hand me every single even-numbered dollar. I get the $2 bill, the 4, the 6, the 8, the 10, and so on. Then, you keep the odd-numbered dollars for yourself, the 1, the 3, the 5, the 7. You are physically separating them, dealing them out one by one into 2 distinct, separate piles.
Okay, so what's the mind-bending reality of what just happened? Well, what did you give away? The even numbers go on forever, right? There's no final even number. So you literally gave away infinitely many dollars. But what did you keep in your own pile? The odd numbers. And they also go on forever.
You kept infinitely many dollars. You literally gave away exactly half of your entire collection, and you still have an infinite collection left over. Your personal pile is exactly as endless as it was before you gave me half of it. No way, right?
Which takes us to our final part, Section 4, a number or a process.
That totally shatters our common sense, doesn't it? But let's smoothly transition from the headache of this paradox into the philosophical paradigm shift that actually resolves it. The key to unlocking this whole puzzle is this simple but profound realization. Infinity doesn't necessarily behave like a normal number. The reason our brains are hurting right now, the reason this feels so completely impossible, is because we've been applying the entirely wrong set of rules this whole time. We're trying to treat infinity like a $20 bill or a normal bank balance or an apple you can hold in your hand.
So I want to pose this to you and really think about this for a second. If infinity is truly unlimited, can you actually give someone infinity and still have infinity? Or does this paradox prove that there was never a real tangible amount of infinity to begin with? If you can't measure it, can you actually truly give it away?
And this is brilliantly where we finally resolve the glitch. Our flawed hypothesis was thinking of infinity as just a giant number, a massive, static, physical pile of cash in a vault. But the actual truth of the universe is that infinity is an idea describing something that never ends. It's not a destination, it's a direction. It's a continuous process. It is the very concept of boundlessness itself. You literally cannot subtract a process from a process and expect to get $0. It's like trying to subtract forward from forward. It just doesn't make logical sense.
And that is exactly why we end up right back where we started, but hopefully looking at the entire universe with a totally new perspective. I'll leave you with this final, provocative thought. If infinity is infinity, and I give away infinity, is what remains still infinity. Next time you think about wealth or math or just the boundaries of the universe, remember that not everything can be neatly counted. Sometimes the rigid rules we rely on simply fade away into the endlessness. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I really hope it stretched your mind as much as it did mine.